Yeah, so I do think there's a chance of a flush, and I think the key here is understanding there's a few different things that are mixing. Now, if we take out the 17.5-ish low here, there's
Yeah,
not a lot of support until you get down to 13 to 12,000, which is my high-end target for Bitcoin. And the
right.
kicker here is we have to remember there's still 150,000 Bitcoin, I think, from Mount Gox that could
Sure.
be unloaded at any one time. That's a lot of Bitcoin, especially when you're at these lower prices for pressure. In addition, I think you have to be very aware that at some point we're going to get news from the judge in the Ripple case. How is Gary Gensler going to say that, all these other coins are securities? What rules do they have to kind of abide by? And I think all of these combined with a strong dollar leave Bitcoin and other cryptos very vulnerable to a kind of one of those bigger quick flushes that could take us down to that level. So I do think that level is a huge bounce opportunity. I don't know if we'll get there before we get down to, we get the Fed coming in here in late September, but I think it is a possibility. So I think there's still that potential that you could see some upside in Ethereum in the near term. And interestingly enough, the chart has a potential breakout here just above this downsloping trend line. So you can see that even, and by the way, this is really interesting because what we've seen in Bitcoin is that the low from basically 10 days ago was already breached. But you can clearly see that Ethereum has actually moved above this trend line and is well off of these lows. So to me, I look at that as a short-term relative strength indicator versus Bitcoin specifically. So I think that, again, there's a lot of hype. I think what Ethereum is doing is awesome. I think it's the right move here. And I think ultimately that in the near term, you could see some price pressure to the upside, maybe even retesting the near highs here of 2,000 on Ethereum. But again, I would just caution and say that depending on the regulation we find out about, that would be a concern, that would be a risk factor that you'd want to be a little careful over the next multiple months holding on to a ton of Ethereum. I think the immediate reaction is a sigh of relief, right? Okay, it's done, it's gone smoothly, you'll probably see a pop to the upside. And again, I'm hopeful that that happens because I think crypto has taken so many punches over the last few months. I mean, even what happened with Michael Saylor and the taxes and all that stuff, it's just one more thing that makes people kind of like, oh, what's this crypto? Is it kind of shady? What's going on? So I'm really hopeful this goes smoothly. If it does, you get a short-term relief rally to the upside. Maybe that 2,000 handle would be where it goes. In fact, the 200 moving average is just above that double top high there. So that would also be a general target. Then after that, I think eyes turn back to the general crypto market, to regulation, and to overall risk assets. And I think that's where it could be. So you could get this short-term relief, but then just be careful beyond that if the whole risk market starts to come in. I actually do think there's a decent chance of it. I mean, if you look at the permeation in crypto of Ethereum and how many things are built on it, I mean, it's essentially the Apple of crypto. Now, I think you look at Bitcoin, and to me, I'm like, okay, Bitcoin is gold, and now Apple or Microsoft would be Ethereum. And I do think there's a lot of upside here down the line. So I am optimistic that it does have a shot of it. Yeah, so I think Polygon is definitely interesting, right? And one of the things I've been paying attention to on the chart is, number one, the chart of Polygon has had a big move up off of the lows and is actually going sideways, creating somewhat of a bullish channel here. So as long as you hold this lower end around 74 cents or so, to me, this is a very interesting potential bullish consolidation pattern for maybe a breakout. Breakout target would be about $1.35 here, which would retest these low pivots. But again, I think that, again, you're seeing a lot of excitement around it. I would want to see, once the excitement kind of goes away or starts to fade, do these things hold up, and just follow the technical lines. As long as it's within this range or above here, it's good to go. If it breaks that 74-cent level, then you want to be very, very careful. But yeah, so I think that it does create a little uncertainty. We know that we've seen other, during bad periods in crypto, halting of trading and not allowing money to be taken out. That does create this kind of question mark. But I think that it also gives us an opportunity to say, okay, well, then the rally could come in if it goes smoothly. Let's say all of these things get opened back up, and then everyone says, okay, it's done, it's in there. I wasn't able to buy prior, everything went smoothly. There's your buying opportunity. There's your big spike. I do think that will happen to some extent, but I really think that the big money, and we're talking the big epic hedge fund money, it's all about, to them, regulation and understanding the rules. And I think that comes down to it. And it sounds crazy, but I can't wait for them just to give us these regulations, give us these rules so that big money can decide if they want to get in or not and make at least a logical decision. But the gray is the worst scenario of all for cryptocurrency. And I honestly think that's why crypto has underperformed the stock market in its recent bounce, is because you just don't have money that big money that was willing to take a shot here. The markets want certainty, right? We know that from stocks. Everything comes down to just knowing the rules, and then money can make that decision. No, I think that the two scenarios, number one, the smoothness of something can be uplifting for the whole crypto sector. So I think that could be a positive thing. But likewise, I think that any sort of hiccups, and you have Ethereum, the biggest alt, if you will, of the group, if they're having issues, what hope do other players have or other coins have something smooth? And I do think it's all about, at this point, perception in the crypto market. And if things go wrong with the ETH merge, I think that's a problem. And by the way, I think that's why the merge has been delayed, and kind of because they know everything is riding on this merge. Killing me with these. So I was in the 850 camp before 2500. I think 2100 is my max upside right now. But now that everyone's going the other way, I feel like I got to go for the 2500.
That June low.
Yeah, so I'm not convinced of that. I think the merge going smoothly can create more downside in Bitcoin, or Bitcoin downside can occur, and then I think that Ethereum can retrace maybe back to a double bottom. It has a small chance of holding that, but I do think that this is now potentially something that can help Ethereum hold up better than Bitcoin. So I'd be in the camp of thinking that, we're so far off that double bottom, which was around $880 on Ethereum. I think that it's very possible that could be, when Bitcoin hits 12 to 13,000, that could be where Ethereum goes back to. Yeah, so number one, the 10-year has been on a rip-roaring rally today alone. I mean, up to 3.334 at this point. The one thing I would point out, and this is something that I talked about a week ago or so as well, is that we saw a high on the 10-year at 3.5% back in June, right? And even with the hawkish Jackson Hole comments, yields have not taken that out. And that tells me the bond market is calling his bluff, saying, hey, listen, he's not as hawkish as he may have come across. And so I do think that this type of setup, it looks very similar to Bitcoin's double top. So I could see us going to 3.5, 3.55 5 high on the 10-year, and then rolling over and having a big move down. Very much. I think you start expecting the next bull run when we get in a situation where things have gotten bad in the economy to the point where the Fed could potentially start printing again, or stimulus from the government. That will be the turning point. And again, I don't know if that's 2023, 2024, but that's where I would say that's the turning. Yeah, it has been, but I honestly don't think the lows are in yet on Bitcoin. I still think 13,000 at minimum, that's where we're headed, just because of the macro structure and all the other issues out there. But I think that, again, you'll see what we usually see is that the final flush will be a quick drop, but then you'll get a little bounce and a lot of sideways chop where you see bulls and bears kind of fighting it out. People say, oh, Bitcoin's not going to be anything. Oh, and then you have other people saying Bitcoin's a great buy here. And you could see that, by the way, back in 2018. We saw a long period of just sideways chop before the next bull market started up. So I kind of expect the same thing. If you look back at 2009, you did see kind of a consistent grind higher, but it wasn't like a shooting star right back to the upside. So I think my guess is if we get down to 12,000 on Bitcoin, Ethereum probably gets back towards that 800 to 900 lows. But one thing to keep in mind is that's actually bullish for Ethereum, right? I mean, if you have Bitcoin dropping, 50% more from where it was, and then you have Ethereum only retesting its double bottom, that's actually very bullish. Yeah, correct. So 50 basis points is what I have factored in. I think, again, the jobs number gave us just that glimmer of kind of the perfect number where he doesn't have to do 75 again. And I think he is going to be very, very careful here as he's getting towards the end of this, and you're seeing the economy start to weaken, jobs just beginning to show that lagging indicator starting to weaken. He's got to be unbelievably careful he doesn't force us into a recession, because that's where they can't get us out. They can't print us out of a recession. And so the question is, if it starts to get worse and we go from a level 1 recession to a 3 or a 5 or a 7, what on earth do we do? And that's the tricky scenario.